So what if your final resting place wasn't on Earth at all? I mean, really. Today, we're diving into an industry that is quite literally out of this world, the business of space funerals.
It's closer to the Wild West up there. That's a quote from an industry CEO. And honestly, it's the perfect way to kick this off. We're talking about a brand new frontier, right at the edge of human tradition and cutting-edge technology, where the rules, well, they're still being written as we go.
To really get what this world is all about, I want to take you back to a specific moment. So picture this. It's November 2015. We're off the coast of Hawaii, and a military rocket called the Super Stripey is on the launch pad ready for its very first trip to space. And for that first minute, everything looks perfect. The rocket lifts off from the white sands, it starts its stabilizing spin, and it seems like it's on a textbook trajectory for its target orbit, about 260 miles above the Earth.
But then, just over a minute into the flight, something goes very, very wrong, and the whole mission comes to a fiery, spectacular end, splashing down right into the Pacific Ocean.
Now look, failed launches happen. It's a known risk in the rocket business. But the cargo on this particular rocket, that was different. See, this rocket was carrying human remains.
So that begs the question, right? How in the world do human remains get on a rocket in the first place? Well, let's pull back the curtain and look at the supply chain that makes this journey to the stars actually possible.
First things first, we've got to be clear. We're not talking about launching entire caskets into orbit. Space on any rocket is incredibly valuable, super expensive real estate. So these services launch what they call a symbolic amount of ashes. We're talking just a few grams.
The whole journey is basically a three-step process. First, you've got a service provider, a company like Celestis, who carefully packs the ashes into what is, for all intents and purposes, a tiny little spaceship. Then, that little canister needs a ride, so it gets integrated into a much larger craft, say a lunar lander. And finally, that whole package has to hitch a ride on a massive rocket from a launch provider like SpaceX. It's this really unique marriage of, as one expert put it, two of the most conservative industries on the planet, aerospace and funeral.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. This sounds like something that's only for billionaires, right? A final, super extravagant gesture. But when you actually start to look at the numbers, you might be surprised.
Okay, so let's just set a baseline. Back in 2014, the median cost for a traditional funeral in the US, the casket, the viewing, the burial plot, the whole shebang, was already over $7,000.
And here is where it gets really interesting. At around $5,000, an orbital memorial isn't just in the same ballpark as traditional options. A lot of the time, it's actually cheaper. The price difference, you could say, isn't exactly light years apart.
But this isn't just a story about dollars and cents. This trend points to a much deeper cultural shift in how we're starting to think about memorializing the people we love. The whole idea of a space burial has been championed by cultural icons for decades. Gene Roddenberry, the guy who created Star Trek, had his ashes quietly taken aboard a space shuttle back in the early 90s. Then you had the first official commercial flight. And a few years after that, the geologist Eugene Shoemaker's remains actually made it all the way to a crater on the moon.
For pioneers, like the psychedelics advocate Timothy Leary, it was just a perfect, poetic final journey. The story goes that when he saw a video about the concept, he stood up, pointed at the screen, and just said, "That's me. I'm going to join the light."
This new type of memorial also fits perfectly with another huge trend, the rise of cremation. By 2018, projections showed that cremations would make up about half of all services in the US. And this is often tied to a bigger shift away from very traditional religious ceremonies and toward more personal, more meaningful memorials. So, all of this brings us to the future. With the costs coming down and cultural attitudes clearly changing, what's next for these cosmic rituals? Where does it go from here?
Well, the future is even more ambitious. You've got companies planning regular memorial deliveries to the moon, with one trying to become the UPS of getting to the moon. Other missions are being planned to send remains into deep space, beyond Earth's orbit. And all of this is happening in that Wild West we talked about, a largely unregulated frontier.
And maybe nothing captures the poetic power of all this more than this one story. In 2015, when the New Horizons spacecraft flew past Pluto, it was carrying the ashes of the very man who discovered the dwarf planet, Clyde Tombaugh, a final farewell billions of miles from home.
And really, this isn't just about technology in the end, it's about what it means to be human. Like the CEO of Celestis, Charles Chafer, said, "As we take humans to other parts of the solar system, we're going to take our rituals. It's just a fundamental part of who we are." And that really leaves us with a fascinating question to chew on. As we look up at the night sky and we dream of becoming a multiplanetary species, which of our most human traditions, our memorials, our goodbyes, our rituals, which ones will we choose to carry with us to the stars?